Jay Johnson stays hot on the recruiting trail as LSU has landed another portal pitcher and a future top round pick in the crosshairs. We're talking about it on bonus coverage of Locked on LSU. Let's get it.
You are Locked on LSU, your daily podcast on the LSU Tigers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Okay, let's get it. It is Locked on LSU, your team every day. I'm your host, Matt Moscona. We are thrilled to have you here for bonus coverage, and we've got some more great LSU baseball news for Jay Johnson and the Fighting Tigers. My goodness, they just continue to roll here on the recruiting trail in the transfer portal, and we got plenty to talk about, so we're glad you're with us. Thanks for making us your first listen every single day. We are free, available however you get podcasts, and of course, available on YouTube as well. So LSU continuing to do work in the transfer portal. And I know a lot of the conversation we've had here is about some of the high profile misses for LSU. We followed guys like Zach Root, the top lefty in the portal who picked Arkansas. Gavin Keelan, the top shortstop in the portal who picked Tennessee. And yes, those sting, but if you've listened to any of the past episodes, my overall feeling on this has been pretty obvious when you look at where different teams have allocated their resources. Arkansas with Dave Van Horn, they focused on pitching. Their NIL budget went to getting guys like Zach Root. Texas A&M, when they hired Michael Early, it was about roster retention. They sunk their resources into keeping Gavin Grahovac and Jace Laviolette and Caden Kent. Tennessee is focused on hitters and infielders. Hence, we just mentioned Gavin Keelan from Louisville, the shortstop, who's picked Tennessee, and I think there's more to come. LSU has done a fantastic job of addressing need with some of the biggest names in the portal. And the Tigers have landed another one. So Connor Benge is a name you may not know, but when I tell you about him, I think you're probably going to get even more excited as we talk here about Connor Benge. So Connor Benge is a sophomore righty, so he's a rising junior. So he's entering his third year, and he's from Dallas Baptist. So Benge played his high school ball in the state of Texas, and then his freshman season was at LSU Eunice. There's a little more to the story I'm going to come back to here in a second, but let me give you the background first. Benge, his freshman year at Eunice, was a third-team All-American. He led Eunice in ERA, innings pitched, and strikeouts. And that was on a team that only lost 5 games all season. They were phenomenal that year with Connor Benge as one of their top arms. He tops out at 97-98, right-handed pitcher. And his measurables, he's... Connor Benge is, forgive me, I don't have it in front of me, my apologies, but he's a right-handed pitcher, tops out at 97-98 this past year, his sophomore season at Dallas Baptist. So went to LSU Eunice, third-team All-American, goes to Dallas Baptist, 33 innings pitched, 35 strikeouts, a 5.73 ERA. So more of a role player out of that bullpen for Dallas Baptist, as he was a starter with Eunice as a freshman. But now he comes in as a draft-eligible player in his draft year, taking another step up from Eunice to Dallas Baptist, now to LSU, and the guy you would figure to be a middle innings eater out of the bullpen. The interesting thing, the phenomenal story, and hat tip to Chaston Tavares, who tweeted this story. And Tavares is from Gator 99.5 in Lake Charles. He tweeted this story 8 years ago. Get this. 8 years ago, Connor Benge was hit by a line drive in a youth game off the bat of Gavin Guidry. Benge was pitching, Guidry was hitting. The two kept up with each other from afar through the years. Connor was just 12 years old. He suffered a subdural hematoma with a midline shift. I'm not going to pretend to know what that is, but it sounds serious when he was hit in the head with a line drive. So Connor overcame that, played at both LSU Eunice, Dallas Baptist, and now is announced he's transferring to LSU, where he will be teammates with Gavin Guidry. That is a very, very cool story, and we'll see what Connor Benge, his future at LSU may hold. I would highly recommend you go check out the tweet from Chaston Tavares on Twitter at Chaston or X at Chaston_Tavares. He's got pictures of Benge from the hospital, a couple of pictures from the hospital, and then also a picture of Benge and Gavin Guidry in their youth league uniforms obviously after this incident. So a pretty cool story that they're going to come together. Maybe what's even more important right now is that we take account of where LSU, the staff is, and where the roster is with the portal. Remember, let me run through the numbers of outgoing pitchers. And this is why you've seen this abundance of LSU pitchers in the portal, right? The targets that LSU has gone after in the portal have largely been pitchers. So remember, Gage Jump, Luke Holman, Thatcher Hurd, Fidel Ulloa, they're all going to the draft. We assume Justin Lohr, who entered the portal, but also is going to be drafted, and we assume that's going to happen. Ackenhausen, Helmers, Little, all out of eligibility. That's 8. And then the other players that have gone into the portal, Dutton, Bucknam, Cam Johnson, Aiden Moffitt, Javen Coleman, Nick Bronzini, MJ Seo. That's another 7. So you're talking the 5 that I mentioned, Jump, Holman, Hurd, Ulloa, Lower, Ackenhausen, Helmers, Little. That's 8 right there already that you believe are going to be gone. Then Dutton, Bucknam, Johnson, Moffitt, Coleman, Bronzini, Seo. That's 15 right there. And then we'll wait and see, what happens with Herring as well. So it could be 16 arms that you're losing from this team. Now, you're going to have guys returning that we're very excited about. Chase Shores, Cade Anderson. If Griffin Herring is back, we're obviously very excited there as well. There's other guys like DJ Primo. It would be interesting to see what step he may be able to take in the next year. And then we have the JUCO and freshman class that are coming into LSU as well that are going to fortify those numbers. But just when you look at the sheer volume of arms that LSU is losing, you had to fortify it with numbers. And they haven't just added arms. They've added guys that have been real legitimate contributors. Look, Zach Cohen was the Friday night guy at Wofford. He may not be a rotation guy for you, but could be an innings eater. Jacob Myers from Nichols was their ace. He's a strikeout ace, needs to work on his command, but a guy who could be a great strikeout threat for you out of the bullpen. Chandler Dorsey was the closer for South Florida for the last 2 years. It's 97, 98 from the right side, and he's been a closer for 2 years. Luke Hayden from Indiana State was their number 2 guy who's now coming in as well. Devin Sheeran from Mount St. Mary's is one of maybe the top right-handed arm in the entire portal, coming in throwing 98 to 100 from the right side. Now Connor Benge, 97 from the right side, who's been a starter at Eunice, who's been a bullpen guy at Dallas Baptist, now taking another step up. The point is, I keep drawing and I'm not just trying to sound like I'm placating or trying to pacify LSU fans, but it's so important to think about what you lost. Sam Dutton had been relegated to a role player. Bucknam was a guy that, Cam Johnson, Nick Bronzini, MJ Seo, none of those guys pitched this year. They weren't even on your postseason roster. Aiden Moffitt was a guy you had super high hopes for and is a great arm talent. But if you gave me, Aiden Moffitt or Chandler Dorsey, both are 97, 98 from the right side, but Dorsey's been a closer for 2 years at the major college level. We're still waiting to see if Moffitt can come along. So when I look at what LSU has added, they've added more proven arms, guys that have gotten innings at the major college level, whereas what they lost were role guys that you were still waiting to see if they would develop. So, yes, it stings to keep seeing that many players enter the portal and losing those numbers, but look at what you have lost versus what you have added. What you have lost is potential. What you've added is experience and arm talent. And the Tigers may not be done. So they've added Connor Benge, who was the 6th pitcher so far in this portal cycle. Remember, Cohen, Myers, Dorsey, Hayden, Sheeran, Benge. That's 6. They've added 6 arms already in this portal cycle. And reports this weekend that the Tigers were hosting another portal arm on Saturday. So I want to get to that as we continue here on this bonus coverage of Locked on LSU, your team every day. Love to tell you about Game Time. Of course, Game Time, an authorized ticket marketplace of Major League Baseball, which makes getting tickets faster and easier. One thing I love about Game Time is prices on the Game Time app actually go down as you get closer to first pitch. So the 4th of July is in the rearview mirror. The All-Star Game is coming up next week in Arlington. If you want to go to the All-Star Game or the Home Run Derby, you want tickets, get to the Game Time app. Look, I have some fond memories being a kid, me, my dad, my brother, my grandfather, making the drive west on I-10 to Houston to go watch the Astros and the Cubs in the Astrodome. I was in high school. My dad, my brother, and I, my best friend, we made a drive up to Chicago to go watch games at Wrigley. Listen, my wife and I, for our 40th birthday, we hopped on a bird, went up to New York City to watch the Yankees. When we went for our 10-year wedding anniversary, we were out in San Francisco and made our way over to the ballpark to watch games with the Giants in the Bay Area. I love watching Major League Baseball. I love being in the ballpark, the sights, the sounds, the smells. Like I went and ran the Cleveland Half Marathon in 2006. The day after the race, you know what I did? I went over to the ballpark and watched the Indians play that day before I hopped on a flight to get back home. There's nothing quite like being in a Major League ballpark, and Game Time makes that happen every single day. So you can customize your spot. So take the guesswork out of buying MLB tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Again, terms apply. Create an account and redeem with the code LOCKEDONCollege. That's LOCKEDONCOLLEGE. Locked on College for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest prices guaranteed. Okay, so before we wrap up, Connor Benge committed to LSU, the 6th pitcher, and the Tigers could be on the verge of adding number 7. So this is actually really cool. You may not know the name Anthony Eyanson, but people around baseball do. So Anthony Eyanson is a right-handed pitcher, 6'2", 195. He's from California, and he spent the last 2 years at the University of California, San Diego, so UCSD. Again, I know there's a lot of LSU fans that continue to hear this course. LSU keeps getting all the small school guys. Fine. This is part of what happens in baseball, really in all sports, where sometimes there are dudes that are super prospects and they commit to LSU out of high school. They show up on campus, and sometimes they're great and sometimes they're not. And sometimes guys at 17 and 18 aren't quite ready yet. But then when they get 18, 19, 20, moving through the college ranks, they start to mature physically. So Anthony Eyanson is one of those guys. By the way, he's on Collegiate Team USA, 6'2", 195. His fastball is 95 to 97, slider at 83. His curveball 77 to 79. This past year at UC San Diego, 82 innings pitched, 85 strikeouts, so more than a strikeout per inning pitched, 3.07 ERA. He was 6-2, and when you look at scouts' projections, he's a 2025 draftable prospect. So next summer, Anthony Eyanson is a projected top 3-round guy. That means he's a top 100 overall prospect for next year's draft in 2025. And you better believe if he commits to LSU, becomes a Tiger, pitches in the SEC, and has a good year, that draft stock will only continue to rise. 6'2", 195, throwing 95 to 97 from the right side. If that can be effective against the SEC like it is against, what you're facing at UC San Diego, now all of a sudden your draft stock goes kaboom. This is the point I continue to make. Would you rather a guy like Anthony Eyanson, 6'2", 195, who just wasn't ready coming out of high school for major college baseball? So he goes to UCSD, grows into his body, 95 to 97, Collegiate Team USA, top 100 overall prospect for next year's draft, and you get him for a year to see if it'll translate to the SEC in year 3 of his collegiate career? Or would you rather the freshman who was highly regarded coming out of high school, didn't pitch at all his freshman year at LSU to see what he might be able to do next year? Listen, there's a lot of different ways to skin a cat, but the point is, you get if just blind resume. If I told you nothing else other than LSU's recruiting a guy that's 6'2", 195, there's 95, 97 on his fastball, slider at 83, curveball 77 to 79. He's on Collegiate Team USA, and he's a projected top 3-round pick in next year's draft. That sounds like an LSU prospect. That's someone I would be excited to see LSU land. So we'll wait and see how this visit goes with Anthony Eyanson. But what we do know, Connor Benge becomes LSU's 6th pitcher in this portal class, and Eyanson's the next one on campus, and we'll continue to see. Listen, I was told earlier this week, Jay Johnson and his staff, they are crisscrossing the country looking for every single possible arm, infielder, bat that could help LSU get back to the College World Series and win another national championship. The undeniable truth about Jay Johnson is he is a relentless recruiter, and he is the best at it in the game. LSU's NIL coffers may not be as deep as other places, but they're going to compensate with other things like playing in front of the best fans in America, playing the best league in America, packed stadium, 10,000 fans, the passion of the fan base, playing in the SEC, 7 national championships, all the things that you can't replace at a place like LSU. And they're targeting the people who value that, and they're having a lot of success adding it. I'm telling you, I know. The feeling from a lot of LSU fans looking at this baseball roster is, why are all these guys leaving, and why can't LSU land the big school kids? Well, a lot of the guys are leaving because they're not playing. And that's part of the portal culture right now. Why are you not landing the big school, big name targets? Well, because NIL is a real thing, and there's other schools that can spend more. But that if you just look at those in a vacuum, you'd be disappointed. But when you pull back, take the 10,000-foot view of what LSU has coming back and what they have coming in, there's a reason why every single writer at D1 Baseball this week, when they put out their projections for Omaha in 2025, had LSU, every single one of them, every single one without exception, had LSU back in Omaha in 2025. This roster shaping up really nicely, and they're not done yet. So Connor Benge is in the boat. We'll see what happens with Anthony Eyanson, who visited LSU this weekend. When we have news, we'll certainly share it with you here on Locked on LSU. So whatever podcast app you might be listening on, thank you so much for being there. Please subscribe on your favorite podcast app, rate us, leave a review. And if you're watching on YouTube, please subscribe on YouTube as well and smash that like button. We appreciate you for being here with us. Until next time, this is bonus coverage of Locked on LSU, your team every day.